So we start this December 21st, 2023's edition of the Select Board meeting at 6:31 p.m. And as usual, we start with public to be heard.
My name is Jim Carroll, and I'd like to make a brief presentation to the board.
Yeah, I'll join you, Jim.
Oh, okay. I don't have my exhibits completely set up, so I'll hand them to you. I only have one copy of them. But here's the presentation. It refers to a bunch of exhibits that we have.
A lot of words.
Yeah.
Well, can I request that this be a little on the brief side, if you don't mind?
Sure.
A few of us were not wild about this meeting before Christmas, so
I know.
the quicker we can keep it.
Sure.
You got Christmas shopping to do, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, we can boil it all down fairly quickly, and then if you have need, you can read this. But the bottom line, or what's recent, is that 10 days ago, the town of Jericho received by hand a legal opinion from the Vermont Gas Systems, consistent with the remarks that Joe had at the last meeting, where in fact our connection to the Vermont Gas System and the issues between the town of Jericho and Vermont Gas Systems are two separate and distinct things. There's no relationship between our service and the issues that the town of Jericho might have. I believe John's in possession of the letter, and I don't know what's happened internally, but there was a verbal FOIA request made so that that would be shared with us. So I'm speaking anecdotally, but having talked to people that I know, this took 10 days to be created by an international energy company, its counsel, and it's consistent with what we've said, with what we believe they've said, that whatever the issues are, and I can offer you an opinion and comments and explanations and stuff, because we know the property, we know what's going on, but it really doesn't involve us. We've offered in writing and verbally that were there to be a change in the location of the gas line, that we would accommodate the town up to and including moving the southern edge of the road onto our property, which actually can be done relatively simply. In other words, let's say the gas line is 4 feet from the north onto the town traveled surface. Well, we can move 4 feet over on our property. We're offering you an easement to do that. However, that puts you farther over the Champlain water. But at the last meeting with Champlain Water on site, I offered to say, oh, okay, well, let's set the shutoff at 6 inches. And I was reprimanded by Champlain Water that I offered 12 inches. He said, Jim, it's going to be 6 inches. And what I think has created confusion, and I have a picture with me, that there's a metal cap, which seems quite formidable, on the gas or on the water. If you go to South Hill, you'll see the yellow painted gas things. All that is a cast iron piece about this big. It has this little cap, and you need a wrench to open it up, and then you stick your probe down through a plastic tube that goes all the way down to the valve. So if you hit it, and apparently it's hit all the time, paved, unpaved, crushed, you name it, they fix it. So I believe there was a collision between one of these objects and the grader at some point in time that may have raised the issue as to where the line was located. That is a non-consequential event. I tried to buy the model from Jay Prescott's to bring it here tonight to show you how this plastic sleeve extends And then on top of the plastic sleeve, you have this little cast iron cup. And then you have this little cap that goes in there. So if you shear off the cast iron cup, hopefully you didn't take out the plastic because that's a pain in the neck. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the valve on the pipeline or on the water line. The water line I personally observed to be almost 11 feet deep. Since it was installed about 20 years ago, the road has been brought up at least 4 feet because their preferred depth is 5. And so it's now almost 11. And we had to very carefully, because it was not marked, there's no wire on the 20-year-old water line. You have to hypothecate where it is from points that you know where it's located. So now, because we install the wire all the way in, they now know where the line is at our valve. So the water is in and done. It's all tested. And this week could possibly be the last week. And we're already almost a month beyond their last date. But they are obliging. They're
Sorry,
supportive.
I got lost.
For my guess.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
So they actually do the work. All we do is with their direction, we scrape the surface, dig down to the line, which is between 3 and 3.5 feet deep, excavate all around it, and then they put a thermoplastic coupling on it that they heat to a certain temperature that fuses on the line. And then after that's on, they take, in effect, a special tool that they mount on that thermoplastic thing that includes a valve. And then they drill through the valve with a special vacuum system that's pulling all the little pieces in the plug. And then that gets backed out, the valve gets closed, and then they've agreed to put a seamless, automatically untest necessary piece of pipe in. And they estimate that will take 3 hours. So the right of way would be a stir. So all this conversation is about 3 hours in the right of way. And we've already been in the right of way to do the water. And here we have a permit.
It's, well, Jim, yeah, we know you have a permit. We know you've been
Yep.
busy with Vermont Gas, talking to them as well. And we can say that the select board is very much wanting this to be finished before the end of the year, just like you are. I mean, everybody's tired of it. We have heard some update, the town has been actively working on this. We can say that. John has some I don't know what he can share with you, but.
Yeah, we have, so we, town council spoke with BGS today. And they've arranged a meeting for next Wednesday. They are offering to relocate the main. And so we're gonna go to the meeting and find out more.
Okay, I have one question here. So I see that the permit process has changed. The application page has changed. When we have our signed copy for the water and the gas, we initially had to apply to the Jericho Highway Department and the Select Board for review and approval. I see the new application just has, it has to be submitted to the Jericho Highway Department for review and approval. I guess that's a vacant position. So how is this being treated? And are we dealing now with the Select Board and road foreman, or the new process we're dealing with the Jericho Road Commissioner? And has that person been established?
We do not have a current road foreman, but in lieu of that, it is the town engineer that does issue the permits.
So
Okay, so they are acting as the Jericho Road Commissioner.
yeah,
For these
but
types of
let's
things.
just update the
Okay.
information that John just shared. I think is really significant and quite relevant. He just said that Vermont Gas is working with the town to resolve whatever that issue is, and a meeting's going to be next Wednesday. That's got nothing to do with us.
That's
Okay,
right, we
let
can
me
take that.
let me continue here. But before I do you guys have questions for us? Why we keep on coming here every 2 weeks? we don't want to make the night any longer. And the last time I was here, I think I spoke too much and I got a little bit too heated. So I apologize if I took too much offense.
I guess my question is, what's the ask to us right now?
The ask is reading right from this page here.
No,
I
gotta interrupt you. I have a signed permit that's 6 weeks old. That is all that we need as a matter of trust.
Okay.
That's right. I mean, the fact is, that's what we keep saying. You have a viable permit. If
No,
You
it-
and
it
Vermont
can't-
Gas.
It can, no, we don't. The Vermont gas permit is conditioned in such a way that it's got to be
And
dealt with.
Jim,
But
this
let me-
is where I'm
Let me
going.
finish, let me finish. This permit was given to Tom in trust. And he was asked not to release it. He cannot release it without this board, whoever's in position, John, telling Tom that it's okay to deliver this to Vermont Gas because this is our permit. The permit that is in great discussion that's got the conditions in it is Vermont Gas permit, and apparently they are willing to negotiate. But a meeting next Wednesday is too late for us. We need to know so that I can have a crew available and coordinate with Vermont Gas. We need to have this permit, which was signed by the town engineer 6 weeks ago.
Who said not to release it then?
John, you gave me an email. It was dated November 6th. And this one here, it has marked natural gas and water underground. Installation of natural gas and water main service. The water main is depicted on the site plan. The gas line will be on the opposite side of the street parallel. I received this, I picked it up, I received an email saying, please do not use this because the gas part, the zoning administrator wanted pictorials of how it was going to be constructed and the materials and the methods to do that. Put it on pause. Do not send this to Vermont Gas. I was instructed. I have not. Okay, I've held my word. We have provided the pictorial means, the methods, how they're going to do it, line boring, digging, engineered drawings. Vermont Gas has supplied to the town, which was the zoning administrator's request. They have all of that information. Once that was received, this should have been released. This is a signed copy from Tyler Billingsley for the gas and water. Then we keep coming back, and now it's become a point where our permit has become a pawn for the town.
As well as Vermont Gas.
That it seems like our permit for the gas is being used as a pawn against Vermont Gas. Foil. So what I'm asking here, and I'll be very short in this, it says on both of these applications, pursuant to Title 19 VSA Section 1111. If you read that, it says the town under Section A3, if there's ever a default in any of these permits that were issued or deficiency or a remedy that's needed, the town has up to 15 years to invoke this. And then at the end of that paragraph, it says, see Section H, which says that is the legal proceedings to do if you have a remedy to fix a problem with the permit that was issued. So Vermont Gas's, where they installed it in the road, that is your avenue to pursue and take a remedy. Not using 20 Morgan Road as a pawn to get that remedy. I don't think that is very fair. The town obviously has a method and a legal means to get what they want. So I'm asking tonight, can we go ahead and just give this to Vermont Gas so we can get connected?
Tom, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I thought that had been given to them.
No, you had told me.
I didn't tell you.
Yes, you did. I can
Well,
show
let's
you.
not get into that.
Okay, I could show in emails.
Okay, that's okay. Let's not get into who.
Yeah.
Okay,
Miscommunications
Because
are.
my
very
understanding is that my understanding all along, going back to the first time you appeared, I gave you that permit that day. My understanding was you were bringing it to Vermont Gas and you would get connected.
No, your email said, oh, hey, Tom, I thought when you were in my office, you were going to fill out 2 separate applications. I said, I wasn't asked to. We had talked about it. I wasn't asked to. And you said, oh, I didn't realize that it had the gas and the water. I thought this I gave you was just water. And you said, please hold on, don't use the gas.
Well, okay, so we will take this up tonight in executive session, and you will know as soon as we make the decision. I mean, that's what we can do.
Okay.
Tom, what's that section again? VSA Title 19.
I got a copy.
It's right here on the new form.
Actually, I want to read it right.
It's Title 19.
Yep.
Section 1111. And it's on both of the town forms.
And what letters were you, what letters were you talking about? The
I
15
think it
years?
was Alpha 3 that says the 15-year clause if you find that a remedy needs to be done because of faulty installation or.
In other words, if there's a violation of the permit, you do not have to, from the date that you realize there's a defect in the permit, you have 15 years with which to prosecute your case. That's what my interpretation of the statute is.
We will take this up.
Okay, it's just been quite confusing because
Oh,
I can count on my hand 6 people who are involved in this
Yes.
permit. The road foreman, the town engineer, the select board, the zoning administrator, the town administrator, and the town council, Claudine Safar.
I've had to read at least 400 emails.
I get, there may
know,
be
we're all
even
reading.
more that the
Exactly.
email chain is involved around.
It's very confusing, no question about it. Everybody's trying to,
Yeah.
do the right thing. And
Actually, let me just bring something.
Sure.
Something
You
to
and
say to
your-
you guys. Well, not some slightly different. So believe me, I've sat on that side of the table many times too. All right, with what I do for a living, and I understand your predicament. I will tell you this, though, that there are certain reservations to the town accepting it without conditions, mainly because of liability possible to the town. Now, keep in mind that we're here for the whole town. So most of our actions, we take in consideration of how it impacts the full body of the town, okay? There is some consideration that issuing the permit without that language that we have in it, that's most current, Tom, puts us at a liability and our residents at a liability and our employees. So one of the reasons we hold up on this is we want to make sure we take this in consideration that we're not going to injure someone. All right. You guys got dealt a pretty raw hand because of where the gas line is located across from your site. No way around it. It's unfair. All right. I wish we could have changed that. I wish we could have oversight, but it didn't happen, whatever. So, and I know this development because I heard this development as a DRB member. I was there. I went all the way through this whole thing. So I know the charted course of this. And I can tell you this situation isn't because of your prior struggles. It's a bad situation. And we are trying to weigh living. We're trying to weigh your needs and also the public's safety on this. So bear with us this is information. We appreciate the information brought tonight. I'm looking at Title 19. I've done a lot of right-of-way stuff. So I'm really curious about this. We'll take in consideration, but understand that we're not doing this to be miserable. These are thoughts and these are items that we brought up that we consider important. Okay.
I understand that.
Okay.
So Tom, here's an email I sent to Adam Giro. That's the 30th. That's the 30th of November.
Yeah,
Based on their response and hesitation around acknowledging the permit. It was our intention from the beginning, the day that permit was issued, for them to connect you.
not this permit. You told me not to
Just
use
so you
it.
know, that says to Chris Flynn, not to Adam. It says, hey, Adam. but
Yeah,
it's-
yeah. This is me forwarding Adam's, this is Adam Giro from Vermont Gas, Jim.
What I'm saying to you is, what I'm looking at right there is it's from John Adam.
Right, this
to
is
Chris
me
Flynn.
sharing it with Chris Flynn after I sent it to Adam.
So this is
Okay.
a blank carbon copy.
So this isn't,
What do you mean? This is, okay,
we don't know who it's sent to.
okay.
Okay, there it
Let's
is.
look at this one then.
There you go. So what are you trying to say that?
What I'm trying to say is the day I wrote that permit, the intention was to help you get connected.
With the conditions on it, not the
There is no
original blank
condition.
ones.
There is no condition at all.
Conditional language
permit-
on, no,
Listen, all the permit, you
I
don't let me
don't, I
talk.
don't think this part is constructive.
All the
They've asked
permit,
us to be
all the
brief.
permit said,
They-
and I'm gonna repeat, because we've said this a number of times. All the permit said was pending potential relocation of the gas line. All we wanted to do in the permit,
we don't need to rehash because there's,
Yeah.
that's just, you have a huge company that's liable for.
okay, but I'm looking,
There
so,
is,
I'm sorry.
there is an issue that Joe brought up that I think is material substantive and
Yeah.
has not been discussed before. I've been putting underground infrastructure in the ground
For 40
almost-
years,
For almost 60 years.
60 years.
I drove a shovel and a rake when I was 13 years old. And there is no risk, if you will, as to whether the gas pipeline is on the edge of the road, off of the road, or in the road, as long as you're not penetrating down to the gas pipeline. So there's already a whole bunch of connections along the length of the line. And I would suggest to you, given the priority that the military installation has, that it's not a libel, Joe. In other words, if somebody hits that cap, it's designed to.
No, I understand that. It's just, it's
Yeah.
designed to come
It's
out.
a-
And this,
But,
yeah.
and
Okay.
so if they're in violation of their permit, I think one of the first things that the board will actually negotiate is, do you leave the line where it is for a myriad of reasons, okay? Do you adopt a bunch of procedures? Do you, the good thing is that you can tone the whole thing. I tried to send you a video of the fact that they literally walk along with a little TV screen and they can follow the
Yeah.
line. And so I don't think there's, when people use the word liability, particularly in a municipal capacity, I think had you been aware of that the line might have been in violation of the permit, that there's a construct for future events where if you choose not to do something, then that might have ramifications. But
Absolutely.
I think it's important that there's no liability that's different here with anything else that's on that line in that right of way with respect to a harm, a physical harm, an explosion or something like that. That's not what we're talking about here. All we're talking about is entering the right of way for a very brief period of time, hours. There's so much confusion around this. People think that you can directionally bore into a line. You can't. You've got to follow this method. You have to expose it. And we don't want to be into a debate about this. We're happy to work with everybody.
So-
We're happy to give you an easement to move the
Okay.
road if that would work.
Yeah, we,
All right, so
We have-
I think Joe's got, they're gonna talk about it tonight. They're gonna maybe take into consideration this Title 119 that the town has a statutory path to get what they need out of Vermont Gas for
So let's-
relocation.
the last thing we want to do is start pointing fingers between staff and so on. Like I said, we definitely understand.
Yes, we're a
Okay.
community here.
We're,
We can get
we want to be solution oriented, okay? We
Absolutely.
really do. Again, I don't want to get into back and forth.
Is trying to protect the town. They're
Yes.
Not trying to, they're not,
I
like
know.
Joe said, they're not,
I-
yeah,
I-
they're trying
I
to
just,
protect.
It-
I
the
it
town.
got it, I wanna talk because I want you to read this and I take umbrage with. It would appear that the people who have observed the goings on with respect to this project, that there's a deliberate effort to interfere, prohibit, punish and slow walk effort. Does that look like any of that to you, gentlemen? It does not to me.
I think,
That's characteristically false
I
and
think,
I'm insulted.
I'm not talking about you. You weren't even here when the slow walk started, John.
Oh.
You weren't in that capacity, and there's a file that's this thick. I don't think this is an appropriate forum.
No,
We've
it
been-
isn't.
We've
It
been
isn't.
asking to talk to this board for at least 7 months to deal with the issue that John is on. And we do believe that there's correlation between them, and that's why we've been trying to talk to you in a confidential way. That letter is to you. I gave courtesy copy to John. I don't need to deal with this right now. You don't need to deal with this.
You just
right
want
now.
the houses to be protected because nobody wants those houses
Sure.
to be damaged.
Totally get it.
Yeah.
All right,
What
So-
we've been doing since the beginning, since the day the permit was signed.
Well,
Okay,
this,
Intention was to get you connected.
this was even before the,
Okay.
the,
I know, but
the
that-
grader
I
hit
think-
something.
I think-
So with
I
the
think
grader hitting
Catherine's in
something,
charge.
Yes,
Let's
that's
let
right.
Catherine.
Thank you.
that's,
So I think, we're going to take it up tonight. We'll discuss it again. We'll try to get as fast a resolution as we possibly can, because as Eric said, I'm tired of reading 400 emails. I mean,
So-
it's not a joke really, but I mean, that it tries to lighten the mood, because here we are, the 21st. They're not happy with
No.
me because I called this meeting to start with anyway.
Sure.
no, but it was
We
just
just-
last Tuesday, we received
Permit that I'm confident.
last Tuesday, we received an email from the town saying, okay, it has to be reviewed by council. We should have an answer for you Friday.
And well,
And then we
unfortunately,
don't get any information. So we're just sitting
we
here.
just got council discussion today.
We have to,
You know, on a
We
Friday,
gotta
it would be nice if someone says, hey, look, I'm gonna have an answer for you Friday. Just a continuation. Hey, guys, we don't have it. But
It's true.
but
I
it's
mean,
just
that
not
would-
an insult to someone just saying you're left hanging.
I will,
That's true.
yes, I will. I will give you that, Tom. Okay,
Yes, that is,
All right.
that is
we,
correct.
somebody. And John, I'm not you, it could have been all of us, but, yeah. But understand, every step we take into consideration the town.
I
Okay?
understand that.
Okay,
And that's why,
And, unfortunately, council has been in court, but today she talked to the
Yes.
oil and gas council, and so this is where we are, and
in the
something,
path we took,
and he's
I'm
gonna
gonna
be,
support John,
He
John,
Yeah, and within, I'm just gonna say, within my capacity, I've done everything possible
it
to
is.
Okay,
help
but-
get you the information you need and
Well, then-
expedite.
So let's close this.
On our
I
part.
just, but you opened up a can of
Oh,
worms
no,
here.
no,
that's enough.
Okay, that's
All I
fine.
can
We
say,
can keep
all
going
I
on
can
and
say
on
to you
and
is
on.
That's fine.
qualitatively
Yep.
for
That's fine. Thank you for your
qualitatively
time.
for 45 years, I have always placed the community's best interests in front of my own, offering easements, trying to contribute to planning and zoning and all of those things. And I think I have an impeccable record of always trying to do what's best for the community. I don't need to persecute or prosecute. What we need to do is to work together to come up with a collegial solution. It's the time of year. We have a very brief possible window that hopefully we can get our vendor to collaborate. I've got the vendor that I directly control ready to do it, and I've held on to them for 2 weeks at
Oh, good.
considerable expense just to be able to do
Okay.
this. Okay?
Yeah. there is
So
a-
thank you for your
thank you.
consideration
Thank you
tonight.
for
Thank
your
you.
time.
And hopefully it's not too late tonight for you guys.
No,
Sorry for delaying it.
no, we understand. I mean, you're
Yeah.
frustrated. Everybody, wants,
Well,
everybody wants to have this finished, and that's.
Okay,
that's
so
where
we're,
gonna
so we're on the mat.
be. Right.
Thank you.
Is there any other public to be heard? Online or in person? No hands? I don't see any hands. So then we're going, move on to the main portion of the agenda. And we are going to move the budget discussion to the last, just before select board updates. So that all the other issues that may impact the budget are discussed.
Sounds good. Do we need a motion to do that, or can we just do it?
We just do it.
Okay.
As long as you do it within the parameters before you start the meeting.
Mhm.
So now we get to review and consider appointing 2 members to the Development Review Board. Steve Mattera will be, the alternate won't be until January, and so tonight we have Matt Brouillard with a term expiring in 2025. And so we always start with, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving on the DRB, because that's a toughie.
So I saw the post on Front Porch Forum that they were looking for somebody on the DRB. And I thought it would be a good fit for me. I live in Jericho. I've been here since 2018. I'm a local realtor, and I've been through the DRB a couple times with Burlington and going through Heinsberg right now, and I just find it interesting process and want to be able to serve the community. And I think that would be the best avenue for me.
The tough part of being on the DRB is always, do you feel that if neighbors come forward with an issue that may be controversial, are you able to, follow the rules and be able to make a decision in spite of it being your neighbor?
Yeah, I mean, the rules are in place for a reason. If they're trying to get around something that is, prohibited on those rules, then there's a reason for that. And, I can't say one way or another. I need to be able to follow the rules and go by that. If there's an issue, bigger issue, then it needs to be brought before the planning committee. And if the rules need to be changed because of something, then that's the way it has to go. So.
Questions?
I'm gonna defer to Joe. Joe used to be on the DRB, so I'm gonna defer DRB type questions to him.
So Matt, I've been on both sides of the table. I served on DRB, I think, for 9 years here. And I work for some engineering company. So I've been to meetings where I sat on this side, and then partway through I go over there. So Catherine hit it pretty well. Sometimes it's kind of tough to be able to separate yourself from what's in there, and especially to understand that just because there's a crowd full of people over there that are opposed to something, the regulations and rules are written to balance it. Just because not everyone doesn't want it doesn't mean it's not right or not fair. And sometimes that's hard to stay attuned of. So I guess I want to stress that if you feel you can handle saying no sometimes, saying yes and no to opposition. I remember I had a DRB hearing, and MMU wanted a digital sign, and I thought it should be there, but I had to vote no because the regulations don't support it. So I have to be fair to it. So that one. And the other thing I'd like to mention is as a DRB member, it's important to be prepared. Meaning, I do think it's very important that the packages or the stuff you're hearing, you crack it the night before at least. You look at it. You look at what Chris or the zoning administrator sent. Check the rules and regulations. Does it make sense? Get your comments down in order. Because as applicants on the other side, they want to have a prepared idea of what's going to be asked of them, and they expect the same of the DRB members. They're prepared. Here's the consideration. So it isn't just that night.
I mean, you don't want to be put on the spot as a DRB member. Somebody,
exactly,
is asking you these questions and you don't have an answer.
Yeah, it's to me, it's the fairness that you have a duty to be informed, and when you get there, you're ready. Just getting caught off guard, I just find it unfair. So that's the one thing. If you have that time, and believe me, I appreciate every DRB member, again, because I've been over there. But if you feel like you've got time and you're well informed, I think it's a great experience.
It really is. You learn a lot about the community. I mean, you really do.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see what's going on, what people are proposing, and see how the community is growing.
What people care about.
Yeah.
Because for sure, you will see people on both sides of the issue if they care about it.
My son asked me one night when I came home from the DA, he said, "What do you do, Dad? How's it going?" I explained to him, and he goes, I said, "Usually at a DRB meeting, some people leave happy, some people leave sad." And he said, "What about you, Dad?" And I said, "I'm really indifferent when I leave. You can't have any passion for both cases. You have to be really really tuned into ruling on it and following the regs." You know, I don't know if I could do a planning commission. It's too general for me. But the DRB is,
Yeah, I mean, the rules are
That's
there
why I
for a
love
reason.
DRB.
Yeah.
so-
I mean, it's just like biochemistry. Yeah.
Scientists.
It's very, it's very.
So-
Yeah, there's a lot to it, a lot of different rules.
and we have a very good DRB right now. Justin
Yeah.
Willis is a great addition to our DRB.
Oh, he's so good.
So that's all I've got.
Well, you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Matt
Brouillard,
Brouillard to the Jericho DRB with the term expiring in 2025.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You will get an official email,
okay, great.
but
Congrats, Matt.
thank you for being willing to serve.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you.
Next we have is funding request for altogether now for $5,000 to be added for our discretionary spending.
I was told that Zoe Bernstein would be joining. Zoe, are you on?
I didn't see any pop up for the waiting
This-
room
this-
either.
Second time we've had this on the agenda and no one representing the organization has shown up. Is that, who's 802-730-3870? Could you identify yourself?
And I think you may have to, since you're dialed in, I forget what the Zoom code is. Hang on,
Can I let them in, Eric?
no, Zoom
Because
unmute
usually it's just the,
code.
yeah, the phone can be updated.
*6. So if you're dialed in and the last,
That,
There you go.
that may be me. This is Brian Stevens.
Oh, hey, Brian.
so
Hey, Brian.
I think that's my number. But
okay,
I'm
that's-
gonna try to dial in a different way.
Thank you for identifying yourself, Brian.
Stop causing trouble.
What's he identify?
So there's no, nobody there from the organization again.
Apparently not.
Well, we'll have to table, put that aside till January.
Running out of time.
Yeah.
And,
So,
sorry, but when you say that, you mean to get it on does it have to go on a ballot?
No, to have it considered for this year's budget.
Oh,
They're
right.
making a budget.
Right.
A
Yeah.
budget request.
yeah, so next is the, what Brian's here for, review and consider approval of 2022-23 surplus to be set aside for transfer from general fund to equipment fund.
Brian, you there? Do you want to?
He's trying to, it's like
Right.
he's back.
The idea is that the surplus, we are running a surplus for the year ended 6/30/2023. And that surplus is about $43,000. The final audit has not been issued. I've been just going through the report footnotes with the auditors today. But the idea is if we can set aside, the request is for $30,000. It leaves us, what it does is allocate some of those surplus for future usage rather than just leave it in the general fund. And the idea is by setting it aside in the equipment fund, we can have it, make that be available for the future, presumably tax year 24-25, actually. And I think that's just a prudent way to allocate some of our dollars for future use to be offset against budget needs into the future.
Sounds good. Questions for Brian?
And Brian, just to, just for the record, so the suggestion is that $30,000 from the general fund balance.
Well, it's the audited surplus of 22-23.
Yeah,
Right, correct.
correct. Catherine.
Which is 43,798 total. And the suggestion is that 30,000 of that would go to line 279, which is heavy vehicles and equipment fund.
Exactly.
Great.
Do we need a motion for that, or is that?
Yes,
Uh,
because you may have to make a transfer from the unrestricted general balance right now to the heavy equipment fund. but you're using the 23.
I don't see that on the agenda.
Yeah, it is. It's
Under
under
approval of surplus to be set aside as a transfer
transfer
from
the
general
equipment
fund to equipment fund.
Right there.
Fourth one.
Review and consider approval surplus.
No, I don't have it on mine.
Well, that is weird.
Well, there was, one-
Even late, that.
Yeah,
That was the last
Oh.
change.
yes, that was the most recent one.
That's right, that was added before
Okay, well,
the packet deadline.
so I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of $30,000 from the general fund to the equipment fund.
I will second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next
Super,
is,
thank you.
thank you, Brian, for taking the time to be with us this evening.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
Go have dinner.
Well,
Thank you very much.
I assume he's here for the.
happy holidays.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta,
you're
you'll come back now.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Next is update to discussion from the Jericho DEI committee to request to move town meeting floor votes to Australian ballot.
Hey, Maria.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, welcome.
Nice to see you, Maria, and SJ too.
Hey, that's right.
Is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I enabled it.
Can you see that okay?
We can.
I don't know if you're seeing the full screen or not, but it probably really doesn't.
That's
matter.
better.
Yeah.
Oh, you can see it? Okay.
Yep, you're good.
All right. So, the DEI committee is here again this evening to talk with you, just a review from the last meeting. We came to the select board asking for the following 2 articles to be added to the March town meeting warning. And those 2 articles are, shall the town of Jericho adopt all budget articles by Australian ballot? And shall the town of Jericho adopt all public questions by Australian ballot? At the meeting, we were asked to reach out to other towns who have moved to Australian ballot to see what they do on town meeting. Because there was some concern about what does it look like afterwards? Does it just go away? So we reached out to towns of similar size to Jericho, and all of them have moved to Australian ballot for town budgets and public questions. And this is the information that we received. This first one's a bit of an outlier because I think someone at the meeting requested what information on what Williston does. So obviously Williston's a larger town compared to Jericho. And they do a couple different things that are really interesting to me. So the night before the town meeting, they hold a detailed budget presentation. And then on the day of town meeting, this is a quote from Wendy, is the one that reached out to Williston, so I'm just relaying what she found out. But she was told with the same 100 folks each year, they vote on the floor for 4 business articles. So 1 is to elect a moderator, 2 is should voters authorize their taxes to be paid in 3 equal installments? 3, should they accept the reports of the town officials as presented in the town report? And then 4 is the interesting one, to transact any other business to be brought before said meeting. And so that one's a little different because obviously it would have the potential of allowing those who attend more power than other, or more influence than other residents. So that's interesting. And then on the day of, they vote by Australian ballot for their budget articles and their public questions. So moving on to towns that are more of the size of Jericho, we reached out to St. Johnsbury, and they moved to Australian ballot approximately 20 years ago. They say that there is little participation in the budget meetings prior to voting. And this was the only, I didn't get a lot from them, but I did get this quote from the town clerk that we do get more participation this way. It does make it a lot more accessible now. More people work and cannot have town meeting day off, so they cannot participate in the floor votes. There are not a majority of voters that show up at a floor vote, so only certain people can take advantage of changing the budget the way they want it. We had a couple people mention about going back to the floor voting, but that will never happen. Again, that's obviously just her opinion, but I wanted to share that with you. Looking at the town of Linden with a population of 5,600 and registered voters 3,700. Prior to COVID, they would hold their town meetings to vote on the budget. I guess they have two budgets, town and highway, and public questions from the floor. And they said less than 100 people attended each year. They said it was better attended when the school budget was voted from the floor, because that would bring out teachers and families. During COVID, when everything was voted on by Australian ballot, they saw that their numbers rose tremendously. They say that some townspeople have objected because of the loss of debate and discussion. But for the last 3 years, they've held a hybrid informal meeting, which I believe is like the budget meeting. And they say that's poorly attended. The town of Heinsberg, which is population 4,700, almost all their voters are registered, which is really nice to see. They hold a special meeting on Tuesday, held a special meeting on Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, and they voted to adopt all budget articles and public questions by Australian ballot. That went into effect the following year. Because it was a special meeting. They only had to wait a few months to vote by Australian ballot. The vote was preceded by an informational meeting the evening before. Previously, they held floor votes the evening before town meeting and voted on elected positions and the school budget by Australian ballot on town meeting day. And they say they followed the same process of holding an informational meeting the night before in March 2023, and will do the same in 2024. They didn't mention turnout, but it seems to be an ongoing pattern that turnout tends to be low. So, the town of Brandon has been using Australian ballots since the early 90s. They have a meeting on the Monday evening before voting day. And they said in 2014, there was a petition to go back to voting from the floor, but it was soundly rejected.
So I wonder what they do at that meeting the evening before.
Well, that's probably the required one by statute, where you have to do the information, that's the budget.
I think it's the budget meeting, yeah, where they kind of go over everything.
Big sell.
Right?
What's it?
And then the one that I found really interesting, and I kept writing back to get more information, was the town of Castleton. 4,500 population, 4,500. They voted to adopt the Australian ballot in 1984. It was effective in 85. And in May of 1997, they elected to vote by line item for the budget, making for a long ballot. And I'll show you a copy of the ballot. So they hold an informational meeting the night before.
I would never go vote in that town.
No, that would be very different.
We have like.
They still do that every year?
I mean, I guess that's one
Every
way of
year.
compensating for the discussion of the line items in a town meeting.
300 lines.
Yeah,
Let me just see if I can click on this to get it to come up so you can.
that would make a very long ballot.
Yeah. Thank you for gathering that data. That's exactly what I was looking for. I just kind of wanted to know, as we consider it, what are we really considering? And it, it's pretty clear that it's signaling the end of town meeting.
So in the past last 2 weeks, again, I appreciate too, I've talked to actually 2 town clerks regarding this. Williston, Sarah, and also Julie Grader in Colchester. Both of them had, as from a town clerk standpoint, they had positive things about going to this, especially with the meeting the prior for the informational meeting. As far as participation, both of them said that there was a little bit more, but not overwhelmingly different than what they typically see for the town meeting. But as far as voter turnout, it's definitely better.
Yeah.
And as town clerks, they both liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so easier for them.
I'm also amazed St. Johnsbury has about the same population as Jericho.
That's what was going through my head too, because that's such that town's got so much,
Fundamentally
they just
such a
have more
different
like
town.
commercial stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
Boy, just think of all the affordable housing they could build there.
Of course,
These empty
their
buildings.
population probably triples when school's in session, right? I don't know how big that school is,
Oh,
right?
that's true, too.
But like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
anyway.
So anyway,
So, yeah, and as you've seen, I think, you know, Australian ballot increases voter participation, but they see, you know, the turnout decrease at town meeting day for any informational meetings. But not everybody seems to do it the same either. So, and it doesn't mean there isn't room for creative thinking like Castleton. We don't have to necessarily do what they do, but,
Yeah, exactly.
and so, you know, and I just want to keep in mind that any additional hurdle to the voting process always creates a potential to disenfranchise someone. And obviously a 4-hour meeting on a weekday is difficult for a lot of our residents, and hopefully transitioning to Australian ballot would create a more inclusive and democratic process for everyone to be able to have their voices heard. And so the 2 questions that we were asking to be added to the warning, I just want to put it up for you again. So if you would like to discuss it, but yeah. And we're happy to answer any questions, SJ.
questions, comments?
I'm ready to make a motion, but I'm happy to wait if there's other discussion that anyone would like to happen first.
Oh, I just, you know, it's ironic that what is considered the essence of democracy, you know, and it's like Norman Rockwell. You know, with people meeting, and it's just fun when people are sitting there on the floor, get back and forth with all the discussion and stuff. But at the same time, as has been pointed out, in modern days, most people can't come.
Yeah.
And we have seen where, you know, that depending on how things happen at town meeting, that's, you know, minorities can control.
Yeah, and you know, Joe had an interesting comment the last time that I've had now 2 weeks to rebut, because it takes me a long time to come up with good rebuttals. So I come up with great ones, but just not in the moment, you know.
That's right.
But he had a really good point that I spent a little time thinking about. And you know, I think the point I don't mean to paraphrase, but I think you said something like, you know, if people really want to come for something, they'll show up. You know, if there's something big on there that they care about, they'll come. And I think that's true. And I think that is exactly part of the problem with at least one particular event that occurred at last town meeting is, if you don't know that something's coming up, you're not going to be there to give an opposing thing, right? You're going to look at the articles, you're going to go, I trust whoever's going to go, right? But it's the things that can come up on the floor and that can just all of a sudden alter the budget or alter whatever it is.
Yeah.
And maybe you looked at it and you're like, yeah, you know, there wasn't anything super interesting. And then you hear about it after and like, okay, I would have gone for that. I would have made the time. And I think that particular, so I think I totally get what you're saying. And I think that I think that's also what makes it undemocratic. You know, we could have 10 people show up and with an agenda, with something that's not even talked about, not even hinted, but it's there. And I think, you know,
but
that
unfair-
power, that's a lot of power to give to a, Jim's favorite word is a gestalt. You know,
Apparent
the cabal is another word too.
unfairness of it. You know?
Yeah,
It's a one case, you know, actually not to pull away, but you look at the DRB meeting, it's exactly what I mean. You'll have everyone in the audience doesn't want Dollar General, but the regulations support it. Just because that powerful group shows up does not mean that, you know, you rule that way. And our regulations for zoning are written like this.
yeah,
Not for town meeting. You can have a powerful group show up and dictate the situation, and there's nothing that makes it fair.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It tilts the scales because we don't have a check and balance for that situation.
right. And so because of that, well, is there more discussion?
No, well,
It's hard to believe, but I have a degree in political science and I've studied constitutional law and participating in democracy my whole life, starting in 1966. I think in Jericho, we could come up with a very effective hybrid that reaches out to the public and encourages greater participation. But at the same time, we have an elected board. So we could easily become hostage to ballot packing by people advertising, oh, this is what's going to happen. I think we could build a hybrid methodology within Jericho where you could put together a budget that had discretionary items based upon new information, error correction, that shifted a certain level of authority, either by dollar amount or percentage, that the elected officials would have some discretion to be able to, if the Australian ballot just went through. And if you think about it over the years, there's been certain things that have happened, and all of a sudden in town meeting, you find out that what's been put forth has an adverse consequence. And I don't want to go into all those details, but I think having built-in fail-safe method that preserves the positive attributes of the public discussion, and at the same time, you get to the efficiency of creating a greater participation. But we also have technology available where you're our elected officials, that you can take the technology and allow people who don't have time to come to the meetings, are fearful to participate in public discussions. I know a few, or, you know, that the ballots, because you're working hard on all these items. Just imagine that if you had to check off every one. I think that you could have a Jericho influential methodology where people could call a 1-800, here's my opinion, Jericho, where people could put to you before you've made the final decisions on the budgets and so forth, that say, hey, don't forget about this, because many times small groups of people, whether it's for lunches or whatever, or the summer programs, come to the meeting and they share with the public things that were not necessarily all that obvious. So I think we could adapt new technology. I think we could adopt some methodologies and then make it easier for you to do your work, allow greater participation, and not have a big burden. And if I'm wrong, then nobody will call the number.
the key with that is it's not our job at town meeting. It's already, our job is already over. It is the public's job. And Dave Barrington keeps reminding you, it's the public, and trying to do that with a public discussion and vote would be very difficult. In fact, is
No, but I'm not talking about a vote. I'm just talking about an information transfer.
Yeah, I think you're talking about trying to get more participation ahead of time, should we go
And
to
we can do
something like
that.
this. And
Greater information.
and I do,
yes, we like that.
I do think if this were to, you know, if I make this motion and this motion were to pass, and then on the floor this year at town meeting, those were to get adopted and we were to agree, and the town were to agree to move to Australian ballot, I think it then becomes even more imperative to the select board that we work hard at that outreach and we figure out how we get more people included. And, you know, that type of thing. So that I agree, and I think we have plenty of time to could start to think about those things should these go through.
And like when we did the ballot issues during COVID. There was, you know, the normal budget meetings that we do, that people may or may not come to, but then you do a informational meeting before the budget is passed by the select board. There's an informational meeting before the early voter happens before.
Yeah.
You do it, and then you'd also have the information meeting that is required within the 10 days before town meeting.
Yeah.
So
maybe
but
maybe
the
finding
problem
a way to make those a little more exciting or
Right.
or
but
advertised
the
or
key
something.
is, they have to be at these budget meetings before it goes to press, because there's no change once it goes to press.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what people have to recognize, that after town meeting, the floor voting changes, that they no longer change the budget at the ballot box. Once it goes to the printer at the end of January, it's all over.
It's either yes or no.
It's either
up or
yes
down.
Up
Yep.
or down.
And all
And
I'm
that-
saying, Catherine, is if you added to the budget line item that said the select board shall have up to this dollar amount or this percentage, a corrective action or discretionary adjustments to how the funds are actually expended, you could put that into the budget and people could either choose to give you that authority or not, because if you just go to the blank thing, all I'm saying is, let's try to be creative and build some flexibility into this so that we don't lose something that's of value while we gain something else that is of potentially greater value.
Thank you. Okay.
So with a heavy heart, I will make a motion to add the following items to the warned meeting, to the warning for town meeting. The first one being, shall the town of Jericho adopt all budget articles by Australian ballot? Second one being, shall the town of Jericho adopt all public questions by Australian ballot?
Do we have a second?
I'm not gonna reword that, but I will second the motion as presented.
Or did you want to have a friendly amendment to change the wording, or?
No, no, no.
All right, all those in favor with heavy hearts, say aye.
Aye.
So it goes to the floor.
Sea change.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work in
Thank you. Yes, thank
gathering
you.
the data. That was good. I like data behind
Yep.
arguments. It helps put us into a position where we can defend it and we can, you know, we can be more informed and
Yeah.
even if we're wrong, right? We did it with decent data. So
Unfortunately, all her data also points out what we expected would happen. That, that people don't come to the informational meeting very often,
yeah.
and they just vote on the budget. and hope
We
for the
just
best.
need to make some really
Well,
good
we'll make
items
it-
on that.
We'll make it fun.
Get it incentivized.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
right.
I mean, like Williston, as I understand it, doesn't really do food, but you know, maybe some of these others, you know, instead, like, there used to be, you know, everybody had lunch between the two, between the town meeting and the school budget meeting. People stayed, there's, you know, had the full day. And they still have, you know, opportunity to have donut, there's a breakfast, you know, now, or, you know, you buy donuts for from the library, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, you could always have, you know, some, you know.
I think we
some
need to
pop-up
tie it,
something.
I think we need to tie it to the pet parade. I think we need to, I think that the pet parade on either side of the street
should be all the tables for the different committees and commissions and different articles and things that people are warning and advocating for. And the food hub is over there. And it's like on
Also
college
like that.
campuses when the clubs are all trying to recruit new members for their clubs as you're walking into the dining hall.
Oh,
You
you want
should
to enter
just
your pet? Answer
fold
a
all
small
that-
quiz. Answer a quick quiz
Exactly.
about our budget.
Pete Davis
Exactly.
could read line item by line item.
We
That
could-
great
We
announcer's
could also
voice.
invite Taylor Swift. She seems to be able to draw a good crowd.
I think she
Maybe-
does.
cares a lot about democracy.
Maybe for Vermont, we should invite Noah Khan. He can
Oh,
come
there
and
you go.
play at the Harvest
you go.
Market, and then we can get everybody to come. Anyway, thank you all. And this is a nice
Thank you.
preview for the discussion that we'll have on the floor. And we'll
Yeah.
see what the folks who attend town meeting think. But thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the review of or discussion of the FY 25 budget. This is not a full line by line item one at all, because
I get it.
they were enough that the other members were kind enough to come tonight to talk about it. So it's a general overview of some of the issues that we are facing in the budget and how we've decided to address them. And so in January, the select board will start reviewing the budget at each select board meeting in a line by line manner or section presentation, depending on what we're doing, to give the public more opportunity to discuss the actual numbers before it actually becomes finalized and goes placed in the morning. And to get to the draft we have in front of us today, staff started meeting in the fall and getting budget information from the various departments and outside agencies. And then the select board participated in two publicly warned, and they were publicly warned budget workshops. And the first workshop, we, covered the asks and the needs, plus had placeholders for salary and benefit increases and our other programs before these numbers came in. And so the budget that came to us in the second meeting included all the changes made at the first and this. So at the second meeting, we started cutting because we are cognizant of asking for a bond vote and the unknown school budget increases. And we did not want to place any, decided to minimize as much as possible any increases in the town budget not to place any more undue burdens. And so discussion tonight is based on that draft and there's probably going to be more changes both up and down before it's final. There may be grant acceptances that will be funded by FY 25, but they're going to be balanced by the expenses related to the grant. And we need to have a fuller discussion of salaries that need to be handled. But but when we started out after the first discussion, we had a 10.57% increase over the current budget.
Hang on, I don't have, let's,
Sorry, how did I?
what if we? So I hold the control button.
Oh, great.
and scroll that wheel. I know that makes it a little harder to read the individual ones, but it gives you a better overview.
Yeah, because we're not going to really do the individual ones like that
Yeah.
tonight. We're just doing some of the highlights and people can talk
Thanks, sir.
about.
Yep.
I'm going to hit a few and then people can talk about others so that we, get some of the changes. But the first one had a 10.57% increase over fiscal year 24, and that wasn't going to fly. We knew that. So after the last workshop, this current draft has a essentially increase of 0.7% on property taxes. And basically to do this, we looked at various issues, but what people have been talking about lately, if you look under licenses and fines, you'll see that we've actually increased the amount of fines that we're going to put into the budget, because even though we're not a speed trap by any nature, the revenue generated has shows how pervasive speeding is, not just in Jericho, but throughout, because we clearly, it's gone up over the years, and it jumped from 52,000 in 22 to 57,000 in 23. And so this does help offset the cost of the service, which will be discussed later. And we'll talk about, I'll just move on to the big change. There are changes in administration and select board. Somebody want to address the support staff contingency that we have put in here to cover?
I'd be willing to speak to that. I'm sorry, Catherine, I didn't do a ton of preparation
No,
for
we
this
just
overview, but
Just that's.
but yeah, I did. I asked the board, and in some of these budget sessions, I felt that we really needed to start to think about what we've heard from the planning commission, what we've heard from some of our volunteers about and staff about our capacity, right? There's a lot going on in Jericho, and there's a lot that needs to be done in Jericho. And so we've heard a lot about how do we increase town capacity. And so what I asked, and what we've been, and what we all kind of, and we all agree that we do need more. We don't know exactly how to add it, where the smartest place to add it is. So we added a line item, and I don't remember exactly where it is, but we added an item.
It's between 107 and 108.
Oh, thank you. Of a little bit of money to consider hiring somebody. We put 50,000 there because we don't know who we're going to get. We don't know if we're looking at a part-time thing or increasing someone who is part-time to more, we're not sure, but we wanted to start putting, I don't know if it's Chuck who says it, but like putting our money where our mouth is, right? So we wanted to start to put money towards what some of the things we've been hearing, which is adding town capacity. And so that's where that 50,000 is. And so that does represent an increase in that particular line item. Again, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but if we don't start budgeting for it and getting it in there, we feel it's one of those things that's never going to happen.
And feel free to jump in anything as we come along.
And that's fine. I'll probably, when we get down to the highways and roads,
Yeah, I'm going to talk later.
Well, again, this is my first season.
Yeah,
All right, I've
that's
only
true.
been through two, so it's okay if I wait in the wings for a while.
That's true. I mean, I just didn't want you to feel left out.
Oh, no. Oh, my yap, I feel like I should.
Under the town clerk, that section will increase, of course, because it's 2024. And they're within that fiscal year of 25 is the full political season with multiple elections and primaries. But where we made the difference to get everything down, and people are going to start wondering about this one, is that we cut 22,500 out of building maintenance repairs. The town maintenance facility, AKA the town garage, already has a brand new furnace. If we're going to ask for a bond vote, we're not going to put extra money into that line item. So we knocked off 22.5 there to try to save money. The biggest change is going to be in road improvement. We knocked $195,000 out of our road improvement budget and are leaving only $100,000, which means there's not going to be a lot of paving or rebuilding this year. And if we are ever going to do it, this is the year to do so. One, we need it in the budget. And two, it's a young crew. We do have several long-termers there with experience, but overall, we have a young road crew. It is also short one member. And by doing this and taking a pause, it allows new members to gain their experience, and we can focus on basic maintenance, paving the aprons and things like that. And because it's another issue, striping, we've left striping at $12,000, but based on the cost of striping and Skunk Hollow, that we looked up the data on that, the cost and the cost decreases per mile. It feels that the 12,000 would cover the needs, especially Brown Straits and Jericho Center.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that we talked about including the very specific call out that Bernie was making about using
Right,
the fog lines to narrow
Traffic calming.
the traffic through the center. And we feel we have enough in the budget to do that. And I think we're mostly in agreement that should
Yeah.
we, assuming we can get someone to do it, that
Right.
that we're in favor, and we left enough in the budget to do that.
correct, yeah.
And I think, you know, I understand we don't have a huge audience tonight, but you know, people should be a little concerned that we cut $195,000 out of the road improvement budget. But as Catherine said, if there's a year to do it, it's this one. We're gonna be contemplating a town garage.
Maintenance facility,
That's what I said, maintenance facility. I don't know why it might have picked up differently. Maintenance facility. And, you know, the crew, hopefully by summer, we'll have a new road foreman, or we'll be up to full staffed
Right.
and whatever. It just seemed like this is a decent year to cut back on the amount that we're putting into road improvement. That said, it means that there's going to be a jump when we go back to what normal levels are in the following year. So that's the risk in doing that.
right,
But since we're going to be asking voters to approve this bond for the town maintenance facility. It seemed like the right thing to do.
Well, you keep in mind too, Eric, that there's a big difference between our line item for road improvements and our normal maintenance. We state, our maintenance for our roads, mud season, gravel, tree brush maintenance and so on. We kept those at the same. So it's not like we can't maintain what we have. We are going with, that's still different line item altogether.
Yeah, thank you for that
So
clarification.
that's, you think, oh no, we won't have money to maintain our roads. We do, different line item. So in those are level what we've been doing.
Yep. Brian's got a hand raised.
Yeah, I think the other thing to mention along with this pause in paving, if you will, is that maybe this will give us an opportunity to reprioritize what needs to be done and set out a better plan for what we do and when. So I think that sort of goes hand in hand with this decline in 24-25.
Thank you.
yeah, and by the next cycle, we may be also in line for another paving grant anyway, which
Yeah.
also helps.
Cool.
And
Because
maybe,
we did Skunk Hollow on our own dime.
yeah, maybe, and maybe our school, we'll see what the repercussions are, our increases in our school taxes.
That's right.
After
It
a
gives us
year.
a chance because nobody knows what that's going to be, and that's very scary. I mean, it worries people, but it may not be as bad as people think. We don't know. Since you're gonna be talking about, you want to talk about public safety, or you want me to,
I can talk about the safety.
Yep, it's 198 through 201.
Sure. So we do not have a large increase from Essex this year, which I know the last couple budget seasons have been a little impactful to that particular line item. They're only asking for a 3% increase there. No increase from Richmond. And again, I'd like to point out, this is what they sent us. And police services have gone up again. So there is an increase in that line item too. Of $37,000, and I believe most of that increase is from the sheriff.
Right.
Because we mostly utilize the sheriff. We only have, I don't even know what it is now, 10 hours if available, 8 hours.
It's now 8 of this, because people say, well, why don't we use the state police? One, the state police is much more expensive, and two, they can't do it.
Right.
They've, in fact, is decreased our contract to maximum of, if available, to 8 hours.
Right. It's 8 hours if available from the state police. So the majority of that increase is the sheriff. Good to point out, like Catherine did, we do get some of that back in the fines, but certainly not that much.
No.
You know, the other. So yeah, that one increase is really drives the bulk of the 17% for that whole total police and safety, 3% from Essex, 26% from the sheriff's office increase there.
Yeah.
Building and total building and property maintenance. Boy, I don't remember what that increase
Yeah,
is
the
about.
only thing, the only increase there is the stormwater.
Oh, the stormwater. So this is the 3-acre
Yep,
stormwater permitting that the town has shared responsibility for Jericho East. That permitting cost is a big increase from 4,000 in the previous budget.
Yeah,
17,000 in this
because
budget.
that's right now is they're working on the engineering and then eventual
And
construction.
there may also be state funding available to defray
To
some
help
of
with
that
that.
cost.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
To be announced.
Yeah,
Yep.
to be, that, I mean, always good to be announced. And then, of course, appropriations mandated is what they are.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're looking at, you know, non-mandated is 111,490, and the potential of adding another 5,000 to that.
Oh, the budget item that for
Yeah.
tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's potential, but overall, there was very little change in most of the asks for non-mandated.
Yep.
And basically, you know, we're going to be using you know, the money that we put aside in heavy equipment is going to come out in the budget for 2025, 26, because there's a potential for a truck to be coming in at that point, a new truck. And so that's how we're trying to mitigate it, is to use where we can our transfers and our reserve funds. And then the unknown for our other collections and remittances, the Deborah Rawson only has already come in, and that went up 7.5%. But you will be taking the meeting with the Underhill and the UJFD.
Already did.
Already.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So they will be presenting their budget to us. I don't remember.
January 12th.
Maybe sometime in January, we'll be hearing from them. They are asking for an increase also. And, you know, they're gonna come with some data that shows what, you know, where the increase is coming from. Mostly it's on capital loan payments, is the bulk of their increase.
Yeah, it seems to be everybody having those increased costs.
Yep.
But anyway, what we have left is to fill in some of these blanks and to discuss more in detail salary consequences. But
I think SJ SJ, do you have a hand up purposely?
I did, but I wasn't sure if it was an appropriate time to ask a question.
Do you want to wait or do you want to
feel free to ask.
fire away?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have two questions. One, I'm just thinking about talking to my neighbors about this and trying to get them more interested. My first question is for paving projects. Are there any projects that folks have been expecting that you know are being postponed as a result of this cut?
No, paving, they look at, the engineer works with the road crew each year. We had a ongoing protocol of which roads to do. Sometimes you shift depending on how much money you have available. Other times you're able to do more depending on whether or not you get the bigger grants. But I don't think there's any area that's expecting a pavement at the moment. I mean, what we do is we try to make sure we keep our pavement quality index at a pretty high level, because then that makes it easier. And if you have a road that's deteriorating, it is counterintuitive, but you don't put any more money into it. You wait till it really goes downhill and then you rebuild it.
Got it. My second question is naive, and maybe this isn't an appropriate venue for it, but and if not, then happy to talk about it at another time. What does asking for a bond mean for your average Jericho taxpayer? Like, what are you
I'm so glad-
asking of us?
We're
So glad you asked.
All the work.
I swear to God, none of you planted that question ahead of time.
Oh, I had it
John,
written down somewhere. Now if I can find it.
We all have to talk about, I mean, there's all kinds of information on it. But Brian has really worked hard to, we've discussed 20-year bonds versus 30-year bonds. But if you do a 30-year, pay it off, you can mitigate when you pay, because you can still pay fast without having any penalties. And the idea is, we're going to take $500,000 or ARPA funding and use it to balance the next few years to, put a little bit each side so that the impact is not as strong, because in 28, 29, the town hall bond is paid off, which frees up $60,000 worth of budget dollars on an annual basis. And right now, based on the last numbers we talked about, if we take that money, we can get it down to per 100,000. Oh, where's that last?
Was it 400 per 100?
It's
400 for $500,000.
no, actually, we got it down to 285.
Oh, that's right. That was the first value before
Yeah.
we.
I recall the number being about 350 per 500,000. So
Yeah,
if
that's
the
what I
value,
had.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was one though, but when we also talked about where, we got it down to, where you used a different format and it got
Is
it,
that the 60,000 each year?
the 60,000 each year.
Yeah. How did that play in, Brian?
Because that got us down to 285 per 500.
I have 375 circled for 30 years. So maybe we need to just get that math again, SJ. But the idea is we tried to
Yeah.
get the numbers so that we can explain it in real terms of unfortunately, we had to use the average house price of 500,000 because we don't actually have a ton of affordable housing here, SJ. I don't know if you knew that. And we came up with around
Somebody should do something about that.
Yeah. We came up with around 300, well, depending on different times we took the notes, but it looks like it's going to be around $375 for somebody with that size house. Obviously, as your assessment goes up or down, you can imagine that
It will be
changes.
less, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's really based on, if you're looking at that number, the 500 number, it's let's see, it was 80. It was, well, one of them was 81 cents. The other one is 50, oh, not $81. The other one is $57 per 100,000. So
That
it's,
would be 250. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try to get that. And some of that SJ comes from, there's a lot of different ways we can, work it if the bond is approved, but trying to be realistic with what we're asking for from the voters is we want to have a fairly clear number that says, look, here's
Yep.
what it is as your, so we have some of that, although our numbers are a little conflicting. So we'll get that math a little bit
but it's
better.
very different.
Yeah, right,
perspectives.
right, because we've,
Keep talking about it.
if we use this 60,000 a year for 10 years, but so we'll have more of a formal, like, here's exactly what we intend to do. Here's what we're looking for you to vote on. And it'll be probably somewhere between that 250 and 375 per person.
And
500.
having some of the ARPA funding is nice because that's allowed you to offset some of this cost. Is that right?
Yes, that's why we're
Sure.
using $500,000 of what are out of the remaining ARPA funding we have. I mean, that's one
Awesome.
of the big discussions. Because it
Okay,
does.
that,
You know, it does provide, you know, particularly between now and 2029. When another 60,000 is freed up.
okay, that's very helpful. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we're gonna obviously talk about this in really depth in January. And go over, as Eric said, a real serious presentation. Because all this has to be discussed before it goes to the ballot. Because this is a ballot item. Bonds are always ballot items.
Australian even.
Jim?
I'd like to follow up on SJ's question and also respond to an item that Joe brought up the other day. I think there's a major confusion over cash flow, current expense versus amortization through bond funding, and queuing off of Joe's concern about adverse effects on the budget. I've watched as we've made what I would call economical decisions that in the long run are actually substantial expenses. And I'll just use what I believe to be anecdotally correct. I don't think our road crew has the equipment that's necessary to do what I would call patch cleaning and patch repair. So when you have a pothole that, particularly at this time of year, has a broken surface and water is going into the substructure of the road, the amount of damage that's done between now and May to that road is substantial. So if you don't have, let's just call it, it's a forced like pressure washer to clean it up, and you don't have the tools to be able to install and compact aggregates, and then what we call a hot box with liquid sealers, you go around when you have a break like we had this week when it was warm, and you very quickly repair as many of those things as you can, because if you spend cents on the dollar now, you could very well possibly save a pretty major failure in the future. And like if you just went around now and mapped where the flooding occurred and where the erosion occurred to the banks, you can identify areas that can be fixed and repaired in the future. And I know artificial intelligence is a bad thing, but with between mapping and recording, if you put that type of stuff into the trucks and you train the people on how to use it, they can be driving down the road and saying, mile marker 13.275, there's a pretty significant depression in the road that's pooling water that's going to do X, Y, and Z. That goes on to a list, the supervisor. So by our putting tools available, we can really save some money, improve safety, and then make sure that everything is better. And if you just look at the edge of the roads, coming around the corner on Brown's Trace at the junction of Barber Farm, because people are constantly over on the shoulder, it's all eroded. So that's cracking the pavement. And as you exit that corner, the road's getting broken. And the only way to deal with that is either create a contract with someone that goes and fixes it, or you buy the equipment, train the people, put it on a schedule, and create the methodology to avoid that. And I've watched for years where we've gone and paved over severely defective substructure. And then if you think about it, it wasn't really that long ago when we paved from Governor Peck all the way out to Clark's Truck Center. And because it wasn't, in my opinion, done correctly. When I've built roads, I always use coarse aggregates, thicker than normal, because it doesn't cost that much more to use coarse aggregates and thicker, because in the long run, that preserves the road. And when you use small aggregates, relatively thin, it doesn't stand up. So when I built the road for McDonald's in Milton, I used concrete. When I built the parking lot and stuff for the bagel bakery, I used 2.5-inch minus. Never had to repave it. And yet McDonald's had to go into their parking lot and they've paved it 4 times. So the same traffic, it's how you do it. You have a town engineer, there are best practices. And I think that looking at an analysis in a budget that says prevention is better than failure. And I think that you've got I think there's some ways that we could do it better. But if you don't have hot boxes and you don't have these tools and you haven't trained the people, it's very hard to do this. And frankly, most of the paving contractors really want you to pave with defective materials so that they can do it. Pike and Whitcomb, I've watched them for 50 years.
Brian's got his hand up.
Yes, I'm,
Brian?
There's a whole lot of science to that, and we need to make sure we're reflecting that in the budget. My only point here, it's real quick, and of course, the 3 of you on the select board are all correct with your number references to the bond. And the difference is between the 30 and 20-year amortization. For the 30 year, it is the 285, Catherine, and for the 20-year amortization, it is 352 per $500,000 valuation.
Can
For
you say that again? Sorry, the 30-year with the
332.
sorry, yep.
285.
For the 30-year amortization, it is $285 per year to start again, for a $500,000 home. And for the 20-year amortization, it's a bit more because you're paying less interest, but it is $350 to start at the first year. So just
see, there's no reason why you couldn't do a 30 and then pay for 20.
Right.
As you got the money.
Right.
To save on the interest.
right.
Means, yeah.
I'll just offer you a little logic. One of the problems that we have is that paying down debt, if the interest rate is competitive, is taking cash, and that puts the burden onto the current people instead of on the people. If this building is built correctly, it should have a 40 or 50-year useful life. And the citizens who are going to use it and employ it for 40 or 50 years, stretching it out is an appropriate allocation of the benefit and the value to and burdening those people that are going to use it. If you pull it in closer, you're disproportionately burdening the older current taxpayers who will not be here and
That's
will
right.
not enjoy the benefits.
That's a good point.
I agree with you on that one.
And so
Let my kids pay for it. I don't need to pay for
the only
this.
thing I'll say is, and that one thing
They
about
can afford
bonding
to live,
is
but-
you always want to borrow when it's low and pay it off.
Well, that's why we're going for a bond right now,
timing
because
of
interest
when
rates
you
are so good.
bond and having some discretion with that allows you to take short money, and then when the rates hit the optimum time, go for the longest period of time you can borrow the money for at the lowest possible rates, and you'll end up with the lowest possible cost and the greatest benefits.
Correct. And we have done that with the other bond.
But anyway, there will be lots of agenda items with the garage on it, but that's just a little preview, as it is kind of relevant since, you know, that's one reason why we worked hard to get this budget down to 0.7 instead of 10 or 11, whatever it was going to be.
It was 10 to like 10 and a half.
Yeah. So
I mean, because this is the year that we need it, because we just don't know what's going to happen to the school budget.
As I heard, it's not good news.
Exactly, that's why we need what we need, but we can at least our big concern is the town maintenance facility, and we can work with the budget what we got here, and things still will get done.
Yep.
Alrighty, next on the agenda, is there any other questions regarding the budget? If not, we're going to go to select board updates.
Can I have 2 seconds? I need to run up and grab my It's awfully popular.
So my update is I shared a little bit earlier. I did meet with the fire department along with the with Dan from Underhill to get a preview of their budget. Yeah, they're coming in about 13% higher than they were. You know, they do good work. They have some, you know, they do a nice job with their budget. Their audit is good.
Oh, good, on it, good.
Yep, their audit is clean. And so I asked I asked Matt to break down a little bit more in where the increase is coming from. So when he comes, he'll have that a little more detail than, you know, than maybe he had the other night. But overall, it's a good discussion. I told him, you know, for the same reasons, I was concerned about you know, an increase of that size with what we're hearing based on the school and knowing that we're going to be asking for a bond. But it was a good discussion.
That's good. I didn't have anything other than Jet Force is going for in January, we're going to start our winter movie lecture series. And we're going for one that should spark a lot of interesting discussion because it's based on called Nuclear Now. And we went through all the issues with nuclear power, but now there's a push to do these mini nuclear plants.
I heard about those like 20 years ago, I swear, and I haven't heard anything about them since.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
And that, yeah, there's been some push recently, and we thought that this was a good discussion. Worth discuss. I mean, it's not like we're going to ask for one, but
Yeah.
but it's going to start, and then in February we'll probably have a local weather person talk about local climate and issues. Plus, he also does dark sky photography, which is what Sabina would like to talk about.
Cool.
And then, if we're lucky, we get the sequel to Kiss the Ground in March. That's the plan so far.
Okay. Just update on the truck.
Okay.
So I first I want to start off with appreciating Bob McGee's efforts in tracking down and getting that ball rolling. In the end, we've had some changes as we've come along down the line in regards to vehicles and so on. Both from basically the two vendors we're looking at is Charlie Boys and Allegiance. As of right now, I have a solid package bid from our Charlie Boys. I will be meeting with Allegiance next week to get basically the same hard package costs that'll be comparing apples to apples regarding the truck, drivetrain, environmental compliance, fit up, warranty, duration, so on. So we as a select board can compare exactly line by line to see what the best, not necessarily the cheapest, but the best vehicle to move with. So that's coming.
Thank you
Great.
for taking it on.
Thank you.
That's good. I mean, that's good. I mean, it was good to get a second bid, that's for sure.
Great.
Jim?
Kathy, at the show and tell on Saturday, a couple of things that I think are relevant to what Joe's talking about came up. One, apparently there is two distinct types of plows. One that's preferred by the older drivers and one that's more flexible and adaptable to helping out with cul-de-sacs and other types of things. So I think that's a relevant subject that should be researched before you necessarily purchase it. But I don't know that it would necessarily interfere with the truck, but it is an accessory to the truck. So I don't know whether the plows are getting sold. Second, that there are some creative adaptations that could be made to the existing garage that would allow you to buy a full-size big people's truck, so you don't lose the 2 yards and you don't have to pay more for the truck. Literally, you could weld an extension on the back of the garage so that the 1.5 feet that's not on the allowed, you're just sort of extending the back of the garage with it'd look like this. It would look like a little shed off the back of the garage so that the plow could sit here and you could close the door. Fast, quick adaptation that would allow you to get the truck inside, but not buy a short truck.
But that's one of the issues that we're going to discuss in terms of that over time, the maintenance facility will save money because we can buy off the rack trucks essentially.
Well, what I would say to you is, and I'm gonna give you some written feedback. Because I'd rather not go into some of the things that I just think that there's an opportunity to. If we had all known that we were buying trucks that were short.
You know, because
trucks
we
that
had,
were custom built. Without saying, well, gee, what could we do about it? So there was also offered from a knowledgeable resident that. When you're looking at new vehicles, you can also get quick detach plows. So you can back a truck in and leave the plow outside. And it's not a big time consumer, so you can use a smaller facility because you're not gonna have a new facility tomorrow,
no, we're not.
but you're gonna have a new truck this year.
No, it's that we're having to order the truck because it's 2 years out.
I think you're getting a new truck this year. I think there's a new truck this year.
Yeah, that's a
and
new
then
truck
another-
this year too, but that was
another-
already ordered and so it's 2 years ago we
Well,
ordered. it.
hopefully it's not a baby truck, it's a big truck, but all I'm saying is that having the site visit, having the dialogues, having communication and opportunities. I think was a really positive thing, and I think there are short-term creative solutions, and I would encourage. That someone within the town, take a look at that report. And say, okay, here's some things that were stated in here, accurate or inaccurate, but they require action. Someone take a safety thing, and I'll just use one example. There's an elevation on the railing. Well, if in fact the elevation on the railing is in fact non-compliant, you don't need a new garage to fix that.
Oh, absolutely.
Send somebody over there tomorrow and fix it. And if there's debris that could cause a trip or fall, that's an operational thing. It's not a structural building thing. So if you go through that report and you highlight in red, I think those things need to be deleted from the report because they're not relevant to the building of something else. And I think that the building of something else should be more tied to, oh, if we have a really super wash bay and we're going to clean the trucks so that we can do better maintenance, et cetera, then we're going to lower the cost of repair. We'll be able to keep the vehicles for a longer period of time. In other words, don't just look at expense, look at opportunity to improve performance, make the job better, make it more enjoyable, and lengthen the duration and lower the overall operational cost. Because I think that there's a way to polish, as we say, the pig and make the pig look a little bit better. But more importantly, in the short run, you can't just tolerate something that has been brought up possibly incorrectly or possibly correctly that can in fact be addressed in the short run. And I studied the Hawthorne studies when I was doing motivational analysis. That was done by General Electric. And the Hawthorne studies, they went in and they tried to figure out the optimum light. Just imagine General Electric, how many people are in the room. And they go in and they try this light, and they try that light, and they see different levels of improvement. What they discovered in the long run was the most important thing was that the employees thought that management and executive function cared and that they were frequently doing things to make things better for the employees. And putting it all on the long-term thing, I think there's some things that you can do in the short run. Safety, motivation, operational and work stuff that would show the people that we care and we appreciate what they're doing and delegate that to somebody that knows how to get stuff done.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Next is your updates.
All right, so I think I brought you all up to speed the other day, and it wasn't until after I'd completed all the updates that I realized it was a perfect lead into a sort of wrap up of the year heading into 2024. So we have Linda and I had a meeting with Chittenden County Regional Planning on Wednesday regarding UPWP projects for 2024. We're going to be able to undertake both a traffic study of Brown's Trace and Jericho Center. So looking at doing some data accumulation and figuring out what sort of prescriptive measures can be implemented for further speed control. Ditto Skunk Hollow, which is, I think, given public feedback and anecdotal understanding of the speed control issues in those two corridors specifically, those are going to be important. We will need to have some more priority conversation at our meeting on the 4th. We can get support for capital budget development, but it would be specifically in relation to transportation specific long-term planning. We could build off that in the future, but an overall capital spending program would not qualify for UPWP support, and I think you knew that, Catherine.
Yep. It has to be transportation related in some manner,
Right.
since it's federal funding.
Right. So I think you're also aware of the consortium that came in a couple weeks back from the Planning Commission and SJ representing the Affordable Housing Committee had sought proposal for grant funding through the Leahy Partnership Program. The two letters of intent that we submitted about a week ago were for educational outreach for wastewater development. So looking to design implementation of community wastewater following the feasibility study, harnessing the energy of undergraduate students who can help with public meetings, basically arranging strategic educational outreach within the community, so people know what the benefits are, know what the costs are, and position the select board in being able to pursue wastewater where prioritized. The other was an affordable housing audit, and SJ, I think you were in my quick report out, the liaison from the Leahy Partnership was nice enough to let us know that they'd received another LOI submission, which was venturing to do a broader statewide affordable housing audit. So the suggestion, without any clear understanding of whether we're going to be provided the $10,000 grant funds, was that we might be able to join forces in some way, and Jericho could, if there were a statewide audit happening instead of or parallel to the audit that we would undertake, Jericho could be a sort of a case study, which is exciting. And we got almost immediate feedback on those two LOI submissions. We just completed, we being the Conservation Commission, with Karina Daly in the position of project manager. Karina, as I think you know, also works as the dam removal specialist for the Vermont Natural Resource Council. Karina helped put out RFP solicitations for the fieldwork and environmental impact research required in advance of the dam removal in the town forest. And we will be in the process of going through, we again being, I may or may not be involved, but the Conservation Commission with Karina's guidance will be going through review and selection of the RFPs, after the holidays. we're also at the 60% mark of the wastewater feasibility study. So I have that to provide each of you for some enthralling holiday reading. Linda and I were talking early today, and we received it from Du Bois and King a couple days ago, and we had so much else going on, it didn't dawn on us until today that it would make sense to give you all an update, given the
Definitely want to see.
given the local interest and vocal feedback we've been getting about advancing wastewater. We thought that would be a benefit to see where that is. We also, speaking of Linda and ongoing scoping study and study projects that we've been managing, sometime early in 24, we will have an additional presentation regarding the multimodal trail between Silly Hill Raceway to Riverside, or Silly Hill Route 15 to Riverside, so that we can arrive at a preferred alternative. The Lee River Road sidewalk project between Sunnyview and Jericho Corners is also moving. We're gonna have to go through environmental review. So Derek Kennison from the state and Dan Pack, who presented to you all a couple weeks ago.
Regarding that, John,
Yeah.
where do we stand with allocations or issuing some funds for addressing the right of way with? No, I mentioned we had some emails back and forth
You did.
about, I don't know how, if I understand how these projects work,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Typically, the budget for figuring out the right of way is up upon the town, which is woefully a bad path to go, because usually town staff have no idea how to research the right of way. So,
Yeah.
and again, the information that I obtained. So the question is within the budget, is there sufficient time for VHB to look at the information provided and confirm it and reestablish the right of way based upon those plans? Or do we need to allocate X amount outside the contract for them to do it?
Yeah, and I've got that in a to-do list, Joe, and I have not had an
Enough,
opportunity.
Catherine and Eric, you,
revisit
Yeah,
that.
I've got the email.
with-
okay, so you're aware.
Well, yeah, when they did the range.
Yeah, so the issue it boils down to is it might be possible we don't need to purchase, or our easements might be within the right of way to begin with. So it definitely behooves us to make sure we get it right.
Yeah.
The first time.
Great, I'll look into that, Joe.
Okay.
Let me see, River Sidewalk. Oh, and so we had to cancel the remaining work within the river below the mill pond
When that's
You
right.
do it.
on Monday.
I said that the other day.
Yeah.
Mother Nature, she's a cruel mistress.
I'm so shocked. Can I just say how
Yeah.
shocked I am that this work got delayed again?
I
Like,
gotta show you.
wow.
I gotta show you the video I shared with Ben McKinney from
You
ECI.
really do have to share it with us.
They were supposed to be on site on Monday, and man, given all the flooding events that we've had, both Irene and the flooding in the last 2 years, that mill's not going anywhere. Absolutely not.
Well, and the
And it's
fascinating,
certainly not gonna get fixed.
be nice,
So,
be nice to fix
Good
it. but-
Lord. I
But
mean,
it's interesting, I mean, right now you're at practically record high for this time, I think it is record high at this time of year for Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
And the river is significantly high, I mean, they're worried about spring flooding already because.
Yeah, I
The
read
water's
today
high.
that they're worried about people on the lake right now.
yeah, I know the lake's got.
103, once again.
Yeah,
Hang with me, couple more people.
yeah, we're here.
Chris Dubin, from CCRPC, informed us that we will be provided a $16,000 allocation from the grants and aid program for a to be determined road project. Which was good news. That's a couple $1,000s more than we received last year. And speaking of the open garage event, I personally was really encouraged by the turnout. I thought we had great, for a first opportunity and a first blush for people to come and see the existing facility through the lens of a potential bond vote and looking to a construction of a new town maintenance facility. We got lots of great input. I actually want to circle back to Chad. He had a lot of great suggestions and questions that I want to provide to Matt Young. I think it also would make sense to try to have Matt on site. We had a lot of questions about, renovation cost relative to new construction, figures that I didn't really have at my fingertips that I think Matt probably does. And yeah, we got some MMC TV was there. We've got video footage some stock video footage from that meeting that we can use to put together a video presentation for people who weren't able to be there. And again, we'll be working to get some additional video footage of the two facilities that were recently constructed in Georgia and St. Albans town that most closely resemble the facility proposed for Jericho. And we'll continue with the weekly outreach. We've done our top 10, so I'm going to help unpack each of the support of the bond vote once we get going again in the new year.
Great,
Thank you, John.
great. So we have
We have
warrants.
boom.
I know you guys get tired of my comments. I think with a bond vote of this magnitude, having read the report and looked at the facility, I encourage you to get a second opinion. And I think that will make the future actions that you take, because there are different ways to look at some of the things that are there. And there's some pretty significant things in that report that might not be the right choice. And the best thing in the world, when we're talking about $4 or $5 million, is to have more than one set of eyes on it. And that I would delegate this to a committee of skilled people who built these buildings before and get some input. You think about that big fight that was between the fire department and stuff, and put that committee together. They did a great job, and I think you've got some highly skilled people in town that could help with this, and you get a better product, less conflict, and it goes smoothly.
Thank you, Jim.
Great.
It's time for the minutes.
I read them today.
Oh, good.
I didn't have any, but I didn't find anything. So let's see. Oh, I did find one thing actually, but now I need to find it.
All right.
Go ahead with yours.
All right, on page 1, it's line 11, it's Livy, Livy.
Oh, you are correct.
And then on page 12, Wendy's last name was left off. It didn't go on, it just said Wendy Verai, and it's Berenbach.
Do you have a line to refer to, Catherine?
12,
Sorry.
11 and 12.
Oh, I'm sorry, line 11 and 12. I was
Yeah.
looking at
I thought
page
you said
11 and
page.
12.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Wendy Verai, Berenbach. Yep. Got it.
There's a part where your neighbor spoke and they didn't know her name, so they just said another member. So I just need to find that.
Yeah, sometimes that's how it's handled, if they don't know, and if you don't know, you
Yeah.
yeah, so what page is that on?
So that's line 382.
382.
Another member of the Jericho Center Preservation Association.
Oh, okay.
That was Mary LaHiff.
Oh, that was Mary.
Yeah.
Oh, I never wondered where she spoke.
Ooh, I
There's
just
Connor
found,
that would speak to us for meteorology.
I just found one that repeats Dickinson, if memory serves, is Dickenson.
Oh, yeah, sometimes you get so used to looking at it. Yeah.
Eric, do you know what line were you, was Mary's name?
That was 380.
So 382, it starts out with
382.
another member of the Jericho Preservation Association, so you
Yep.
can cross all that out and just write Mary Litt.
Excellent. That's cool. See, testing you. Wonderful. Okay. Got right with you here.
Great, thanks.
I'll make a motion to, or sorry, are you done?
Yeah.
With minutes, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now.
And now. Motion to enter into executive session for reasons of personnel and legal, because premature disclosure of the information discussed would be detrimental to the parties involved, and I'd like to invite John Abbott to the executive
I
session.
accept your invitation.
I know when I'm being asked to do.
You have a
Good
second?
night, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Did you second?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'll second that. Yeah, I'm second. Of course I got a second. I got another meeting to do.
Hang on, I gotta figure out how to get.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.